Alina Rodriguez checked her reflection in the glass doors of Cross Industries Tower, smoothing down her discount blazer one final time. The 47-story building stretched toward the Manhattan sky like a monument to power, and she was about to enter. It is nothing more than a summer intern. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the strap of her second-hand briefcase. Knowing that inside those walls worked some of the most influential people in the corporate world, the elevator ride to the 40th floor felt endless. Alina had spent 3 years working nights at a diner while studying business at community college, but dreaming of moments like this. Now, standing in the pristine hallway outside the marketing department, she wondered if she was completely out of her depth. First impressions and cold welcomes. Diana Sterling barely glanced up when Alina introduced herself. The chief marketing officer was everything Alina had imagined a corporate executive would be: sharp suit, sharper tongue, and an expression that could freeze fire. "You're the intern?" Diana said. Not a question, but a statement, dripping with dismissal. "Coffee machine is in the break room. Learn how to use it well." Alina's supervisor, a junior executive named Rebecca, was kinder, but equally clear about expectations. "Stay quiet, take notes, and don't speak unless someone asks you a direct question. This isn't college. One mistake here can end careers." First week passed in a blur of copying documents, organizing files, and fetching coffee. Alina observed everything, though. She watched how decisions were made, how power flowed through the office hierarchy, and most importantly, how problems were solved. Or in many cases, how they weren't solved at all. The crisis emerges Friday afternoon brought chaos. Alina was organizing quarterly reports when she overheard heated voices from the conference room. Through the glass walls, she could see Diana Sterling pacing frantically while James Parker, the head of strategic development, kept shaking his head at the presentation screen. "The Meridian account is threatening to pull out," Diana was saying, her usual composure cracking. 6 months of work, $12 million in projected revenue. They're saying our campaign doesn't resonate with their target demographic. Alina knew about the Meridian account. It was Cross Industries' attempt to break into the luxury sustainable goods market. She had read every brief, every market analysis, every focus group report while filing them away. What she had noticed, but apparently no one else had, was a critical disconnect between what Meridian claimed to want and what their actual customer base was buying. The moment of truth, Monday morning, brought an emergency meeting, Alina was told. To sit in the corner and take notes as the senior team scrambled to save the Meridian deal. The conference room was packed with executives, each more expensively dressed than the last, all staring at charts and graphs that painted a picture of impending failure. That's when Nathan Cross entered the room. Alina had seen the CEO from a distance, but up close, he was even more imposing. Tall, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to miss nothing, he commanded attention without saying a word. His suit probably cost more than Alina's entire semester tuition, but it was his presence that truly set him apart. The way conversations stopped when he walked in, the way even Diana Sterling straightened her posture. "Status report," Nathan said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Diana launched into an explanation, her words tumbling over each other as she tried to explain how a sure thing had become a disaster. Market research had been thorough, she insisted. The campaign was innovative, cutting edge, exactly what Meridian had asked for. "Then why are they walking away?" Nathan asked, his tone dangerously quiet. The intern who dared to speak, Lena, watched the room fill with uncomfortable silence. These brilliant, highly paid executives had no answer. She looked down at her notepad, where she had been sketching connections between different data points she had observed. The pattern was clear to her, but she was just an intern. She too speak up. But as the silence stretched on, and she watched Nathan's jaw tighten with frustration, Lena felt something shift inside her. She thought about her mother, working double shifts at the hospital to pay for Elena's education. She thought about her younger brother, who looked up to her as proof that their family could rise above their circumstances. She thought about all the times she had stayed quiet when she should have spoken up. "Excuse me," Alina said, her voice barely above a whisper. The room turned to look at her as if a piece of furniture had suddenly started talking. Diana's face went pale, then red with anger. "The intern needs to remain silent during executive meetings," she snapped, But Nathan held up a hand. "What is it?" he asked, his dark eyes focusing on Elena with laser intensity. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced herself to stand. "I think I know why Meridian is pulling out," she said, her voice growing stronger. "It's not about the campaign quality. It's about authenticity." "The revelation explained," Nathan said, leaning forward slightly. Elena took a deep breath. "I've been filing all the reports on this account for weeks. Meridian's leadership keeps talking about reaching conscious consumers and ethical luxury buyers. But when you look at their actual sales data, their highest performing products are the ones that emphasize heritage and craftsmanship, not environmental impact." She moved to the presentation screen, her hands shaking but her voice steady. "Our campaign focuses entirely on sustainability messaging, but their customers are buying stories. They want to feel connected to tradition, to artisanal quality, to something that feels real and earned. The environmental angle is secondary." Diana started to interrupt, but Nathan silenced her with a look. "Continue," he told Elena. Meridian's CIO, Robert Meridian, started his company after inheriting his grandfather's workshop. Every interview he's given mentions how his grandfather's hands taught him about quality. But our campaign shows factory workers and recycling. Symbols. We're selling them a message that doesn't match their heart. Elena clicked through the presentation slides, pointing out the disconnect between Meridian's brand story and cross-industries approach. They don't want to be seen as a green company that happens to make luxury goods. They want to be seen as a luxury company that happens to be green. The shift in power of the room was completely silent. Elena could hear her own heartbeat, could feel sweat beating on her forehead despite the air conditioning. She had just contradicted months of work by people who earned more in a week than her family made in a year. Nathan stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. "How long have you been thinking about this?" "Since the second week of the campaign development," Elena admitted. "I kept seeing the disconnect in the data, but I thought someone else would notice it." "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" Elena glanced at Diana, whose face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "Because I'm just an intern. I didn't think anyone would listen." Nathan was quiet for a long moment, then turned to address the room. "I want a complete campaign revision based on this. Analysis. Heritage, first. Sustainability as a supporting element. Diana, I want your team to work with." He paused, looking at Elena. "What's your name?" "Elena Rodriguez, sir." "I want your team to work with Elena on this. She clearly understands the client better than anyone else in this room." The meeting dispersed. Elena found herself alone with Nathan for a moment. The other executives filed out quickly, Diana shooting Elena a look that could have melted steel. Elena began gathering her notes, expecting to be dismissed. "Elena," Nathan said, and she looked up. "How old are you?" 22, sir." "Where did you go to school?" "I'm still in school, actually. Community college. I work nights to pay for classes." Nathan nodded slowly. "You've been here how long?" 3 weeks. 3 weeks, he repeated almost to himself. "In 3 weeks, you saw what a team of experienced professionals missed in 3 months." Elena didn't know what to say to that, so she remained silent. "I want you to lead the revision," Nathan said finally. "Not assist, not support, lead." Elena's breath caught. "Sir, I don't have the experience or the authority. You have something better," Nathan interrupted. "You have insight. And you have the courage to act on it, even when it's uncomfortable." He moved closer, and Elena caught a hint of his cologne, expensive, subtle, entirely masculine. "Don't let anyone in this building make you feel small," he said quietly. "What you did today took more courage than most people show in their entire careers." The warning as Elena left the conference room. She found Diana waiting in the hallway. The older woman's smile was razor-sharp and completely without warmth. "That was quite a performance," Diana said, her voice honey-sweet and poisonous. "I hope you understand that speaking out of turn has consequences." "I was just trying to help," Elena said, meeting Diana's gaze steadily. "Help?" Diana laughed. "Sound like breaking glass." "Darling, you just made enemies of half the senior staff. They don't appreciate being shown up by someone who serves their coffee." Elena felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her voice level. "If helping the company succeed makes me enemies, then maybe the problem isn't with me." Diana's smile widened, becoming even more predatory. "Oh, you sweet, naive little girl. You think this is about helping the company? This is about hierarchy, about knowing your place." Your place is at the bottom of the ladder, no matter how clever you think you are. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Nathan Cross may be impressed with you now, but men like him don't date down. They don't raise up. They use what they need and discard the rest. Don't mistake professional appreciation for anything more. The sleepless night that night, Alina lay awake in her tiny studio apartment, staring at the ceiling and replaying the day's events. Part of her was thrilled she had been noticed, valued, given an opportunity that could change her life. Diana's words echoed in her mind, mixing with her own insecurities and fears. She thought about Nathan's eyes when he looked at her. The way he had listened to her ideas with genuine interest. There had been something there, something that went beyond professional respect. But Diana was right about one thing. Men like Nathan Cross lived in a different world. One where people like Alina were usually invisible. Still, as she finally drifted off to sleep, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken a dramatic turn. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new dangers. She had stepped out of the shadows, and there was no going back. The game had changed. Elena Rodriguez was finally ready to play. Tuesday morning arrived with an email that made Elena's heart race. Nathan Cross himself had sent her the complete Meridian files, along with a note, conference room, A9 a.m. Come prepared to lead. Alina arrived 20 minutes early, spreading her research across the polished mahogany table, her hands trembling slightly as she organized her thoughts. When the team filed in, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Diana entered last, her expression carefully neutral, but Alina caught the flash of resentment in her eyes. James Parker looked skeptical. The other executives seemed torn between curiosity and irritation at being led by someone who had been fetching their coffee. Just days before, Nathan entered precisely at 9, and the room fell silent. Took his seat at the head of the table, his dark suit impeccable, his presence commanding. Alina, you have the floor, he said simply. Alina stood, her voice steady, despite her racing pulse. I've restructured the entire campaign around what I call inherited excellence, she began, clicking to her first slide. Instead of leading with environmental statistics, we open with Robert Meridian's story, the grandson who learned quality from calloused hands. As she presented, Alina felt the room's energy shift. Her ideas were bold, personal, and completely different from anything Cross Industries had produced before. She watched Nathan's face as she spoke, seeing approval and something deeper in his dark eyes, a spark of genuine admiration that made her stomach flutter. The first victory by Thursday, Meridian had not only agreed to stay, but had increased their budget by 30%. The revised campaign had struck exactly the right chord. And Alina found herself summoned to Nathan's office for a private meeting. His corner office was intimidating. Flirt 2 ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Awards and accolades covering one wall, and a desk that probably cost more than Elena's yearly tuition. Nathan was reviewing documents when she knocked, but he looked up immediately, his severe expression softening slightly. Hey, sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk.
Right.
The Meridian deal closed this morning? Robert Meridian specifically requested that you handle all future creative direction. Elena's breath caught. That's incredible. It's also unprecedented, Nathan continued, leaning back in his chair. A client has never specifically requested an intern. You've made quite an impression. He stood and moved to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. From this angle, Alina could see the strong line of his shoulders, the way his expensive shirt fitted perfectly across his broad back. Tell me about yourself, Alina. Your real story, not your resume. Alina hesitated, then decided on honesty. I grew up in Queens. Mom's a nurse, works double shifts to support my brother and me. My dad left when I was 12. I've been working since I was 16, cleaning offices, waiting tables. Anything to help pay the bills and save for school. Nathan turned to face her, his expression unreadable. And what do you want? Long term, I mean? I want to prove that where you come from doesn't have to determine where you go, Alina said without hesitation. I want to build something meaningful. Help companies tell stories that actually matter to people. Something shifted in Nathan's eyes. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. The dangerous attraction over the following weeks, Lena found herself working more closely with Nathan than anyone had expected. He would call her to his office to discuss strategy, invite her to client meetings, and seek her opinion on campaigns that had nothing to do with her official responsibilities. Each interaction was professional on the surface, but underneath, Lena felt an undercurrent of tension that left her breathless. Nathan was unlike anyone she had ever met. Driven and surprisingly vulnerable when he let his guard down. During late-night strategy sessions, he would tell her about the pressure of running a company he had inherited from his father, about the weight of expectations and the loneliness of command. "Everyone wants something from me," he told her one evening as they reviewed quarterly projections. The office was empty except for them, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. "Business deals, social connections, money. You're the first person in years who talks to me like I'm just a person." Lena looked up from her laptop, meeting his intense gaze. "'Cause to me, you were just a person. It's very smart, very complicated. Person, but still just a person." Nathan moved closer, so close she could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. For a moment, Alina thought he might kiss her, and her heart hammered so hard she was sure he could hear it. Instead, he reached past her to point at something on her screen, his arm brushing against hers and sending electricity through her entire body. "His projection here," he said, his voice slightly husky. "It's brilliant." The office politics intensify, and his rising influence did not go unnoticed. Diana Sterling began a subtle campaign of sabotage, excluding Elena from important emails, scheduling meetings when she knew Elena had classes, making snide comments about diversity hires and special treatment. "She's playing with fire," Rebecca warned Elena one afternoon. "Diana has been with this company for 8 years. She has allies, connections. You're making her look bad, and she won't forget that." But Elena was learning to navigate the corporate maze. She documented everything, copied herself on important communications, and most importantly, she delivered results. Every project she touched succeeded. Every client she worked with requested her involvement again. The other executives began to take notice. James Parker started asking for her input on strategic initiatives. The creative director sought her advice on campaign concepts. Even the financial team requested her perspective on market analysis. "You're becoming indispensable," Nathan told her during one of their evening strategy sessions. "That's both an opportunity and a danger." "What do you mean?" Lena asked. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then said, "Indispensable people have power, but they also have targets on their backs." The turning point, the moment Alina had been both anticipating and dreading, came on a rainy Thursday evening. She was working alone in the conference room, preparing for a major presentation, when Nathan appeared in the doorway, looked different, less controlled, more human. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly mussed, and there was something in his eyes that made Elena's pulse race. "You shouldn't be here this late," he said, closing the door behind him. "Neither should you," Elena replied. Setting down her pen, Nathan moved closer, stopping just in front of her chair. "Elena," he said quietly, "what's happening between us?" "It's complicated." Elena stood, bringing them face to face. "It doesn't have to be." "Yes, it does," Nathan said, but his hand reached out to touch her face, his thumb tracing along her cheek. "I'm your boss. You're an intern." "The power dynamic alone, I'm not just an intern anymore," Elena interrupted, leaning into his touch. "You've made sure of that?" Nathan's control finally snapped. He pulled her against him, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was hungry, desperate, and everything Elena had been dreaming about for weeks. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, her body responding to his touch with an intensity that surprised them both. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Nathan rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed. "This changes everything," he whispered. "I know," Elena whispered back, "but I don't care." The secret begins. What followed were stolen moments that felt like living in a secret world. Quick kisses in empty hallways, text messages that said more than they should, lingering touches during meetings that left Elena burning with want. Nathan was careful, discreet, but Elena could see the hunger in his eyes every time he looked at her. Their relationship deepened beyond physical attraction. Nathan began sharing parts of himself he had never shown anyone: his fears about living up to his father's legacy, his loneliness at the top of the corporate hierarchy, his dreams of building something meaningful rather than just profitable. Alina, in turn, opened up about her struggles with feeling like an outsider, her determination to prove herself worthy of the opportunities she had been given, and her growing feelings. For a man who was supposed to be completely out of her reach, "You make me remember who I wanted to be before I became who I had to be," Nathan told her one evening as they worked late in his office. He had ordered dinner for them, and they sat on his office couch, her feet tucked under her, his hand resting on her ankle. "And who did you want to be?" Alina asked. "Someone who changed things for the better? Someone who used power to lift people up, not just to accumulate more power." Alina set down her wine glass and moved closer to him. "You still can be that person." Nathan pulled her onto his lap, his hands tangling in her dark hair. "With you? I almost believe that's possible. Storm clouds gather, but secrets in corporate environments are hard to keep." Alina began to notice the subtle signs that their relationship was not as hidden as they had hoped. Knowing looks from security guards when they left the building together, whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. Diana Sterling's increasingly predatory smile. The breaking point came when Alina overheard Diana on the phone. In her office, the door slightly ajar. "I'm telling you, there's definitely something going on," Diana was saying. "The way he looks at her, the private meetings, the special treatment, it's completely inappropriate, and it's compromising his judgment." Elena's blood ran cold as she realized Diana was talking to someone on the board of directors. Nathan Cross may be brilliant, but he's thinking with the wrong part of his anatomy. This little girl is going to bring down everything his father built. That night, Alina couldn't concentrate on work. When Nathan suggested they grab dinner together, she declined, claiming she had plans. She could see the hurt in his eyes, but she needed time to think. To figure out how to protect him from the scandal that was brewing, the confrontation the next morning. Diana cornered Alina in the break room, her smile sharp as a blade. "You look tired, dear? Late night? Just working on the Morrison account?" Alina replied carefully. Diana mused, stirring her coffee slowly. "You know, I've been thinking about your rapid rise here. It's quite remarkable, really. From coffee fetching intern to strategic consultant in just a few weeks. Some might say it's unprecedented." Alina met her gaze steadily. "I've worked hard for every opportunity I've been given." Diana laughed, a sound like ice cracking. "Oh, I'm sure you've worked very hard. The question is, what kind of work have you been doing, and where?" The implication hung in the air like poison. Alina felt her cheeks burn, but she kept her voice level. "If you have something to say, Diana, just say it. I'm saying that office romances rarely end well, especially when there's such a disparity in position. Nathan is a powerful man with a lot to lose. You're a nobody with everything to gain. People might wonder about your motivations." Alina set down her coffee cup with trembling hands. "My motivations are to do good work and build a career. Nothing more, nothing less, of course." "They are," Diana said smoothly. "But appearances matter in this business. And right now, appearances suggest that our CEO is compromising his judgment for a pretty face and a sad backstory." The words hit Alina like physical blows, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Is that a threat?" Diana's smile widened. "It's advice. From someone who's been playing this game a lot longer than you have." As Diana glided out of the break room, Alina slumped against the counter, her heart racing. The battle lines had been drawn. She was caught in the middle of a war she wasn't sure she could win. Alina spent the weekend agonizing over Diana's threat, but Monday brought a crisis that pushed everything else from her mind. She arrived at the office to find Nathan in an emergency meeting with the board of directors, his face grim as stone. Diana stood at the front of the conference room, presenting what looked like a detailed report. Through the glass walls, Alina could see charts, photographs, and documents spread across the table. Her stomach dropped when she recognized some of the images, security footage of her and Nathan leaving the building together. Timestamps from their late-night work sessions, even photos that had been taken with a telephoto lens showing them. Having dinner at a restaurant across town? Rebecca grabbed Elena's arm as she stood frozen in the hallway. "You need to get out of here," she whispered urgently. "Diana's presenting evidence of your relationship to the board. She's claiming Nathan's judgment has been compromised, and that you've been manipulating him for personal gain." Elena felt the world tilt around her. "That's not true. Never a relationship didn't affect any business decisions." "It doesn't matter what's true," Rebecca said frantically. What matters is what they can prove and how it looks. Diana's been building this case for weeks. She has documented every project you've worked on, every promotion, every special treatment. She's painting a picture of corruption and manipulation. Through the conference room windows, Alina could see Nathan standing rigidly as Diana continued her presentation. His jaw was clenched, his hands fisted at his sides, but he wasn't defending himself. He wasn't defending her. The impossible choice. An hour later, Alina was summoned to Nathan's office. He was standing at his window, his back to the door, his shoulders rigid with tension. When he finally turned around, his face was a mask of cold professionalism that broke Alina's heart. "Sit down," he said, his voice formal and distant. Alina remained standing. "Nathan, whatever Diana told them is irrelevant," he cut her off. "What matters is that our relationship has created a situation that's damaging to the company and to both of our careers." Alina felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. "So that's it? You're choosing the company over us?" Nathan's facade cracked slightly, pain flashing across his features. "I'm choosing reality over fantasy. Alina, what we had was never going to work long term. You know that as well as I do." "I know that you're scared," Alina said, moving closer to his desk. "I know that Diana has you backed into a corner and you think the only way out is to sacrifice me." Nathan's hands clenched on his desk. "It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple," Alina shot back, her voice rising. "You can either fight for what we have, or you can let them destroy it. But don't pretend this is about what's best for me or the company. This is about you protecting yourself." Nathan's eyes flashed with anger. "You think I'm not fighting? You think this is easy for me? The board is talking about forcing me out. Everything my father built, everything I've worked for, it's all at risk because I couldn't keep my personal life separate from business." "And whose fault is that?" Alina demanded. "I never asked for special treatment. I never used our relationship to advance my career. Every success I've had here has been based on merit, and you know it." "Do I?" Nathan asked. And the question hit Alina like a slap. "How can I be sure? When the CEO is sleeping with an intern, every decision he makes regarding her is suspect." Alina staggered backward as if he had physically struck her. "You don't believe that? You can't believe that." Nathan looked away. "It doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what the board believes, what the company believes, what our clients believe." The final confrontation, Alina felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. "I see. So I'm expendable. My career, my reputation, my feelings, none of that matters as long as Nathan Cross keeps his corner office." "Alina, no," she interrupted, her voice deadly quiet. "I understand perfectly. You got what you wanted from me? A distraction? An ego boost? Someone to make you feel like a better person than you actually are. And now that it's inconvenient, you're throwing me away." Nathan's face went white. "That's not fair." "Fair," Alina laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would be you standing up to Diana Sterling instead of letting her destroy me. Fair would be you having the courage to fight for something real instead of hiding behind corporate politics." She moved to his desk and placed her hands flat on its surface, leaning forward to meet his eyes. "I'm going to save you the trouble of destroying my career, Nathan. I quit." Nathan shot to his feet. "Alina, don't do this. We can find another way." "There is no other way," Alina said, straightening. "Not as long as you're more concerned with protecting your image than protecting the people you claim to care about." She turned to leave, but Nathan's voice stopped her at the door. "I do care about you, more than you know." Alina didn't turn around. "If you cared about me, you'd fight for me. Since you won't, I'll fight for myself." The revelation. Alina cleaned out her desk in silence, ignoring the stares and whispers of her coworkers. She was placing her few personal items in a box when James Parker appeared at her side. "This is wrong," he said quietly. "Everyone knows you've done exceptional work here. Your relationship with Nathan had nothing to do with your professional accomplishments." Alina looked up at him in surprise. "Know about the relationship?" James gave her a sad smile. "Alina, everyone knew. The question was whether anyone would be petty enough to use it as a weapon. Unfortunately, Diana Sterling has never been above using personal information for professional gain." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. there's something you should know. Diana's been planning this for months, long before she had any evidence of your relationship with Nathan. She saw you as a threat from the moment you spoke up in that first meeting. Alina frowned. What do you mean? Diana's been positioning herself to take over Nathan's role for years. She's been building alliances on the board, undermining his decisions, waiting for him to make a mistake she could exploit. Your relationship just gave her the ammunition she needed. Lena felt sick. So this was never really about me and Nathan. It was about her ambition. Exactly. And if you walk away now, she wins everything. Nathan loses his position, you lose your career, and Diana gets the company. The counterattack that evening, Alina sat in her tiny apartment, staring at her laptop screen. She had spent hours researching Diana Sterling, digging through public records, financial filings, and corporate documents. What she found made her blood run cold. Diana had been systematically embezzling from company accounts for over 2 years, hiding the theft through a complex series of vendor payments and consulting fees. She had also been selling confidential client information to competitors. Using shell companies to hide the payments, Elena's hands shook as she compiled the evidence. Diana Sterling wasn't just ambitious, she was a criminal who had been using her position to steal from the company while positioning herself to take over at 10 o'clock that night. Lena called Nathan, answered on the first ring, his voice rough with exhaustion. Alina, are you all right? I need to see you, she said. Tonight it's about Diana. An hour later, Nathan met her at an all-night diner near her apartment. He looked haggard, his usual perfect appearance disheveled. At best. When Alina spread the documents across the table, his face went pale. My God, he whispered, scanning the financial records. How long has this been going on? At least 2 years, maybe longer. She's been very careful, very smart about hiding it. She got greedy. The amounts have been increasing over the past 6 months. Nathan looked up at her, his eyes filled with amazement and something deeper. How did you find this? I'm good at seeing patterns, remember? Elena said softly. I couldn't let her destroy you, even if you were willing to let her destroy me. Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. Elena, I'm so sorry. I was scared and I handled everything wrong. I should have trusted you. I should have fought for us. Lena squeezed his hand. We can deal with our relationship later. Right now, we need to stop Diana before she destroys the company. The resolution the next morning, Alina walked into Cross Industries one last time. She went straight to the boardroom, where Diana was conducting a meeting about restructuring in the wake of recent events. The board members looked surprised to see Alina, but she had Nathan's authorization to present. New information. Ladies and gentlemen, Alina said, connecting her laptop to the presentation screen. I have some information about financial irregularities that I believe you need to see. Diana's face went white, then red. This is highly inappropriate. Ms. Rodriguez is no longer an employee of this company, which makes her testimony even more credible, Nathan said, entering the room. She has nothing to gain and everything to lose by bringing this information forward. For the next hour, Alina methodically presented evidence of Diana's embezzlement and corporate espionage. The board sat in stunned silence as the scope of the betrayal became clear. Diana tried to deflect, to claim the evidence was fabricated. But the paper trail was too extensive, too detailed to be fake. By noon, Diana Sterling was escorted from the building by security. By evening, she had been arrested on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and corporate espionage. The new beginning, 2 weeks later, Alina stood in Nathan's office, but this time as his equal. The board had offered her Diana's position as chief marketing officer, recognizing that her insights and integrity were exactly what the company needed. So, Nathan said, leaning against his desk with a smile that made Elena's heart skip. We're going to be working together again, as colleagues, Elena said firmly. That won't be anyone's dirty little secret, Nathan. If we're going to have a relationship, it needs to be honest and open. Nathan moved closer, his eyes warm with love and respect. I wouldn't have it any other way. I've learned that trying to separate my personal and professional life was a mistake. You make me a better leader, Alina. You make me a better man, Alina smiled, finally allowing herself to hope. And you make me believe that anything is possible, even for a girl from Queens who started out serving coffee. Nathan pulled her into his arms, and this time when he kissed her, there was nothing secret. about it. Through the glass walls of his office, the entire company could see their CEO kissing the woman who had saved his business and stolen his heart. Epilogue. Me. 6 months later, Lena stood at the podium of the Forbes Women in Business conference, looking out at an audience of hundreds of successful women. Her speech about integrity, courage, and fighting for what you believe in received a standing ovation. In the front row, Nathan watched with pride as the woman he loved inspired others with her story. After the conference, they would fly back to New York, where Cross Industries was thriving under their joint leadership. Elena's community-focused campaigns had brought in record profits, while Nathan's ethical restructuring had restored the company's reputation. But more importantly, they had found something neither had expected: a love built on mutual respect, shared values, and the courage to fight for what mattered most. "You know," Nathan said, as they walked hand in hand through the hotel lobby, "I never thanked you properly for saving my company." Elena laughed, the sound bright and happy. "You thank me every day by being the man I fell in love with, not just the CEO who hired me." "And you," Nathan said, stopping to frame her face with his hands, "you remind me every day that the best decisions aren't always the easiest ones." As they kissed in the middle of the crowded lobby, neither caring who saw them, Elena thought about how far she had come from that nervous intern who was afraid to speak up in meetings. She had learned that sometimes the biggest risk was not taking any risk at all, and that love was worth fighting for, especially when it made you both stronger. The girl who had started by serving coffee had ended up serving justice, finding love, and proving that courage and integrity could triumph over politics and greed. And this was just the beginning of their story.